How's it guys, Munash here, back with more Alliance War, 8th war of Season 22, and this was quite the war for me. In fact, this was one of the craziest wars I've ever had in Tier 1. So I did 10 fights this war, 6 with Quake, 3 with Nick Fury, and then 1 big fight with Hyperion, who I must say I was quite excited to bring back into Alliance War because it has been a while since I last used him during the seasons. He used to be almost a staple in my team last year. Like if you look at my older war videos, you see a lot of Hyperion gameplay. But nowadays it's very rare that I would actually use a Cosmic Champ in Alliance War. Okay, so I'm gonna jump on to part 1. And first we have this Darkhawk with Arc Overload and Vigorous Assault. He is defensive, but Quake still works perfectly fine. And I do want to start by holding heavy to bypass Overload. Okay, so I go in, I do trigger DAHS a few times, which is perfectly fine. The main thing I want to do is make sure that I start the fight holding the heavy, just to bypass Arc Overload, so now it won't trigger for the rest of the fight. Okay, so then eventually I get into a corner, and I can start doing a bit of heavy only. And yeah, Darkhawk is not the most difficult champ to Quake, animation wise at least. And yeah, you can just heavy parry this, will work perfectly fine as well. I'm just trying to avoid taking unnecessary block damage. And yeah, it's a very straightforward fight. I'm still not boosted for this, but I can still get it down in just about 1 minute. So yeah, Darkhawk, pretty common placement in Alliance War, and Quake is just a very good counter for him on the vast majority of the nodes. I've Quaked Darkhawk several times in Alliance War. She is my go-to counter, and Quake works well for a lot of other fights. So yeah, I don't need to bring another counter just for this fight or these type of fights. Alright, now moving on to the next fight, we do have an Invisible Woman with Masochism and Indomitable. So this is a fight that I used to use Quake for, but I'm just going to use Nick Fury because he can get it down very quickly and it's also very efficient with him. And she is defensive and so is Nick Fury, so yeah, those two will basically cancel each other out. Because I can get those destructible charges on her. And she has very little health, so yeah, I'm not really worried about this fight. Shouldn't take that long, even unboosted. Don't have to wait out any invisibility. And get some good bleed damage going. And yeah, she does have Masochism, which sort of makes up for her low health pool to a certain extent, but still, you know, it's a very straightforward fight. Super quick with the rank 3 Nick Fury. And yeah, just want to make sure I don't get hit, of course, you know, DAHS those special attacks. I actually do prefer DAHSing the special too. I just find it a little bit more easier to, you know, punish and stuff like that with the heavy attack, or even just to DAHS it. I just like the range that it has. Okay, so yeah, she goes down, pretty simple fight, and now we do have a Mojo. So I'm going to apply a lesser attack boost for more fights in the future. So now this one has Strike Counter Fury, Armor, and Power Drain. So it's a very comfortable fight for Quake, and as usual, fighting against Mojo, I do want to sort of play around these prompts. You know, make sure I don't do as he says. Unless there's no harm in doing it, you know, for some of them there isn't. So yeah, when he says dash backwards, I just want to make sure that I don't dash backwards and I just parry instead. So I heavy parry instead of heavy DAHS. And then I think I get blocker hits next, so I'm going to heavy DAHS. Don't want to parry this time. And hold block, and yeah, Quake really has to hold block. I mean, parrying and holding block aren't the same, so yeah, no problems there. And sometimes I do trigger the anti-life field, but it really doesn't matter. Main thing is I just don't want him to gain any power, or too much power. And yeah, just avoiding those prompts just helps a lot with that. Okay, so he's almost down. And yeah, pretty fun fight with Quake. And now we're gonna get to this Mysterio, and this Mysterio just, wow, he almost ruined my day. Like, he was just on his worst behavior, and if you've watched me fight Mysterio recently, then you would know that I genuinely despise the way this character behaves. Just his AI is extremely annoying. I find it so obnoxious that I think it needs to be toned down. Like, they need to nerf Mysterio's AI. Because there is no reason for him to throw heavy attacks half the time he throws them. It's just ridiculous. So I decided I'm going to go with Quake because Quake is one champ who generally doesn't care about AI behavior. You know, she just does her own thing while the opponents fail to hit her. And yeah, so I thought that would be a good strategy just to avoid that stupid heavy spam of his. He also has Power Snack, which means I don't want to Dex in this fight, but that's more because he also is immune to ability accuracy reduction. And he also has backup recovery, which means that he will gain 30% of his max power when he hits 50%. And usually Quake bypasses that, but because he's immune to concussion, that won't work. So I don't want to actually trigger Power Snack and backup recovery, because then he will gain 1 bar of power in this fight. Although that didn't quite work well because I did accidentally drop my heavy attack, which was a mistake on my part. And I did try to do some heavy only as well, just to avoid some block damage as well, and I thought that it would be easier to avoid that heavy spam as well if I do some heavy only. But that actually is what caused me to drop my heavy attack. Then eventually he will gain 1 bar of power, and I couldn't bait a special 1, so I decided to push him to 2 bars of power because I had to Dex. So now he throws a special 2, and I do end up blocking it, so I take a bit of block damage there. But still I'm at 75% health, so I'm not too worried, and then after that I can just carry on quaking. And then unfortunately, he didn't quite cooperate AI-wise in terms of him actually coming into me and allowing me to Dex him before Power Snack resets. So now I'm getting annoyed because I'm quaking like normal and he's still throwing heavies, and yeah, that's just very annoying because sometimes I don't get the timing perfectly right. So now it's at 11%, I'm like, okay, the fight's going pretty well. There was another heavy and it connects, 16k crit. I'm in assassin's range now. I try to drop a combo to kill him quickly, and nope, the poison takes me out eventually. At 2% left. 2%. To say that death annoyed me would be a bit of an understatement because, okay, first of all, it is my fault. You know, I didn't boost that much. I had a 10% attack boost or champion boost. And yeah, but that's because it's an easy fight. You know, I don't boost much for easy fights, but so many things went wrong in this fight. You know, first of all, me dropping my heavy didn't help, but I recovered from that. You know, I still baited a special attack and I, managed to avoid getting hit by it perfectly fine. I had 74% health after that. So I was still pretty good for the fight, and then just went into that heavy spam mode of his, and I managed to avoid a lot of them, but then eventually towards the end the one connected and it just happened to crit as well. Did a lot of damage, and then there's the poison on top of that, and yeah. So I just finished him off with Nick Fury, just had to do 1 hit literally, and yeah, now we're gonna move on to section 2, and first up I have this Wasp with Rage and Enhanced Fury. So she has very low health, only 95,000, so if I were to use Nick Fury I would probably hit the Rage cap. So I am gonna Quake this one, and it should be a pretty straightforward Quake fight. She doesn't actually trigger Rage, although her damage will be capped by the Rage node. So Rage fights with Quake on this node generally take about the same amount of time because her Aftershock damage goes up to 2.5% of their maxed health. So Quake will almost always hit that damage cap with the Aftershocks, unless you're fighting certain rank 3 skill champs, I guess. Which is also why there is practically no point in using attack boosts for this fight. So I do find this node somewhat annoying with Quake just because of how little Aftershock damage she does. It kind of feels like using a 4-star Quake for it. But she still works really well for it, still has the concussion and doesn't have to make contact, so she can still bypass a lot of stuff that happens on this node. The fight will just be a bit longer than a typical non-mini-boss fight. And fortunately Wasp isn't defensive because she is a champ who could sort of qualify or meet the criteria of being defensive just due to her evade. But I suppose her main trademark abilities are more offensive based. But I mean, they're just tags. I don't know how much thought Kabam puts into them. Like, I scratch my head at some champs, such as Red Guardian, who isn't defensive. But anyway, Wasp goes down, and right on time, because these fights usually take about 100 seconds. Alright, now we're gonna move on to Storm Pyramid X, and this is probably the champ I fight the most on this node, which has Aggression Prowess and Power Focus 2. It's a pretty popular placement, and I do understand why people place her so much. You know, with Aggression Prowess means more special damage, and with Power Focus 2 means more power gain until you get to 2 bars of power. So you combine those things and yeah, you can get a very messy fight because a special 2 is pretty difficult to fully dex. And then she also has glancing, which means some power control mechanics won't be very effective against her, or at least they won't be reliable. So there is that risk as well. So ideally you would want to bait the special 1, and this is pretty typical for fighting Storm Pyramid X in general. So this is a fight that I've only ever done with Quake and Archangel, and I can tell you that Quake is so much better for it, just because she doesn't have to deal with glancing. Archangel works well too, but it still takes a bit of time to get going because, you know, the glancing can prevent your debuffs from applying. And then obviously with Power Focus, you're going to be baiting a lot of special 1s. So Quake is probably the best counter for this fight, and I have used her on several other Storm Pyramid X's on various different placements. So yeah, she goes down, pretty straightforward fight. Alright, and now I'm going to apply some big boy boosts because we do have a few mini bosses to take care of today. In fact, we have 3 to take care of today, and some of them are pretty stacked. Even though at this stage the war was looking good, as in we were looking likely to win it, it wasn't very comfortable, you know, the war was still a bit close. So first up we have a ManThing with Vigorous Assault, Indomitable, and Recovery. So I'm just gonna Quake this ManThing. I've Quaked him here a few times this season. So I'm just gonna go in and do the usual, heavy only, with a bit of heavy parry when I need to. And fortunately it's just a 5-star ManThing, because I have fought a couple of ManThings and Sasquatches on this node this season, and some of them are rank 3s, and those 2 champs have such high health pools that the fights just feel so long. Not to mention they are also defensive, so that just adds to that element. And yeah, fortunately Quake has class advantage on those 2 matchups, so it doesn't feel like they take forever. But I do still want to boost up for it just to make it feel like an almost normal fight. And also just to be safe, you know, although the boosts were more for the next fight. But yeah, I just don't want to trigger Dex, although there's not much problem with triggering Dex in this fight. We just trigger Stubborn, which I don't want. Unless Concussion is active at the time. So yeah, I generally do like Quake for the ManThing matchup. Just because you don't have to worry about those postules being popped on you and all that. Getting the armor break and the poison. I mean, obviously champs who are poison immune like Red Hulk will do really well in this fight. Red Guardian also works well since he can't gain buffs, but the main thing about Quake for this specific node is that she bypasses his regen. So you don't have to worry about Vigorous Assault at all. I always just feel safer or cleaner when I use Quake. You know, ManThing is quite the nasty champ. And now we're going to move on to the Killmonger, and this is the fight that I brought Hyperion for. So now we have a rank 3 Killmonger with Stunning Reflection, Polka Dodge Power, and Stun Vulnerability. Now this is a fight that I've never done before, so I wasn't feeling super confident for it. So I decided to use an invulnerability boost as well. I've seen the fight being done before, mostly by Omega Red, some by Nick Fury, and Cosmic Ghost Rider. But I would prefer not to use Nick Fury because then I would have to rely on his real mode, you know, because he's stun immune and has a lot more damage. But he also has a lot less health, and for a bit of a tricky fight like this, I wouldn't want to play with a champ with low health if I don't need to. So I figured Hyperion should work well for this fight, mainly because his special 1 does apply those incinerates and then I can parry him without getting that stun reflection. He does also gain power gain buffs, so I don't really have to worry about Polka Dot Power for this one, because that node only affects combat power rate. And then Hyperion also does apply an armor break with his special 2, although I didn't even get to use it because I couldn't actually squeeze it in before the stunning reflection returns, so I just relied on special 1 and special 3 for this fight. The special 3 is more for the cosmic charges, so I can do a bit more damage. It's also nice to have when you are in a corner so you can get out of it very quickly. Then the special 1 for the incinerates, which do good damage on their own, and disable the stunning reflection. And the great thing about Hyperion special 1 is only the first hit makes contact, so that's the only one that will get reverberated. And it doesn't even do that much damage anyway, so it's not that bad. The only thing is it can apply multiple incinerate debuffs, which will give him some power gain. So I just had to make sure that it doesn't have too much power before I throw it. And then bait the special 2, which is generally the one that I like baiting because I can actually parry the first hit and then avoid the rest of it without triggering stubborn. I can also heavy punish both of these special attacks if I align myself correctly, but it wasn't really needed for this fight. And I also did use multiple special 3s just due to Hyperion's power gain, because if I can't use the special 1 quickly enough, then I will get to 2 bars of power. And then I'll have to use a special 3 because the special 2 does have a chance to apply that stun, which I don't want with the stunning reflection active. So yeah, Hyperion works pretty well for a stunning reflection Killmonger, and it was pretty fun getting to use him again in Alliance War. I lost about 50% health in this fight just due to block damage and reverberation because I didn't armor break him at all in this fight. And the fight itself didn't take too long. I managed to get him down in less than 3 minutes. And that's with multiple special 3 animations. Although they do good damage when you have multiple fury buffs. So yeah, I was quite pleased with how this fight went. Now I just gotta drop one more special 3 and that should take him out. Alright, and now the last fight I was assigned was the Spider-Man stock enhanced with Brute Force, the best defense, Spry, and Limber. So this is a pretty good matchup for Nick Fury because he can counter evade, he is defensive, he doesn't have to rely on parrying, especially if you're in the second phase where you can be unblockable. And yeah, just good damage in general. And I did get parried again in this fight, and I don't know why I've been getting parried so much this season. But yeah, I basically let him drop a full combo on my block, but I was a little bit too late to punish it, so then he did actually manage to parry me. But I mean, it's not really an issue, and this is a fight where I actually really don't mind getting hit at all, because I will just build my tactical charges a little bit faster, which I do need to counter his evade. And I can only get 4 when I throw the special 1, so getting hit once or twice can actually be beneficial. So now I have at least 5 charges, so now he cannot evade at all. And I am going to bait the special 2 here. And I just want to make sure that I actually parry one of the hits, one of the last hits, just to make sure I remove stubborn. And now I'm back to 3 tactical charges, so I need to throw special 1 before he evades too much. Because with the best defense, he can also gain a bit of power when he evades. And I'm also holding block a bit, baiting that heavy attack just to get some easy combos. But he does evade a little bit more when he's below 50%, so I need to be a bit more careful. But as long as I can maintain at least 5 charges, then I have nothing to worry about. And also, you know, knocking him down will purify those non-damaging debuffs. But I mean, that fatigue isn't really an issue, it just hinders my crit damage a bit. But I can still heal from all power with it. Okay, and Stark Spidey goes down. And I thought that would be my last fight for the day, but I also did get to fight the Sting boss. Because Sting just wasn't having it today, and let's just say the pew-pews were ineffective. So now we have a rank 3 SIG 200 Thing with about 78% health left, and I didn't actually boost for this one. Well, I used a lesser skill boost, the skill special boost, but I just used that because I had one in the stash that was going to expire. But yeah, the war was already won, so I felt like there's no need to boost for this one. And someone also placed a Magneto Marvel Now pre-fight ability, so I'm going to have an extra 15% attack during this fight. So I'm going to go in with Nick Fury, and I'm going to do medium, light, medium combos because he is bleed immune, so there's no point on doing that light ending combo. And the bleeds are generally good for managing his rock armor, so he doesn't get to above 15 before I can bait a special attack. But Nick Fury's damage won't be spectacular in this fight because he does rely on bleed mostly for damage. But he still has some pretty good crit damage, you know, he's got a very high crit rate. And when he's in the real Nick Fury stage, when I lose the decoy, he can do some pretty nice yellow numbers. But right now I'm still just playing with the decoy, and generally when I use Nick Fury, I don't want to rely on, you know, the real Nick Fury if I don't need to. But this is quite a stacked fight, and I am going to need to lose the decoy sooner or later if I want to get it down without timing out. So I am just throwing special 2s here because they do some fairly good crit damage, but the last hit can trigger that protection. But yeah, it's actually quite a comfortable fight with Nick Fury so far. The only thing is I'm not doing that much damage right now. But I'm just going to carry on, you know, bait special attacks, punish. And what I should have done in this fight is actually just spent the first part of the fight, maybe like the first minute or two, just building up those destructible charges. Then I lose the decoy, then I can start doing some real Nick Fury damage, but without worrying about stubborn that much. So I can play more aggressively and just take him down fairly quickly from that point. But yeah, that's just the tip I got after I did the fight. Then eventually I do save my power for a special 3 because I wanted to see how much damage it would do before I lose the decoy. And this one only did about 3% damage, which isn't that much and not really worth saving for. So now I'm almost halfway through the fight in terms of time, but I've barely taken more than 25% of his health. So at this point I decide that I need to lose the decoy, so I decide to get hit by special 1. So that takes me straight into the real Nick Fury stage and with a good amount of power. So I just want to bait one more special 1 before I throw my own special 1. Then I can quickly throw another one to go unblockable. So there he is blocking, but I'm not really worried about it because the special 1 has some good pushback on it. Then I just do 2 hits and throw another special 1. And now I'm unblockable. So now I'm pretty set up for this fight, and the only annoying thing is that my medium crits can actually trigger protection. So it actually would be better to do a light attack than a medium to end a combo. But yeah, now I'm playing a little bit on the edge in the sense that I have lower health than I usually would when I use Nick Fury. But it's all good, it's a rank 3, he's pretty solid. And I'm unblockable, so I don't have to rely too much on parrying. The main reason I need to parry is just to remove the indestructibles. And then I am going to throw some special 3s now for damage because the special 2 will trigger protection. But with special 3s, the protection only takes effect after the animation. So it still does all its damage, which is pretty good damage with Fury's Fury. It does about 44,000, which is 10% of his health. Alright, then I bait a special 2, and because he isn't unblockable, I can actually parry the last hit to remove stubborn. Well, to remove the indestructible. Then I can just punish, you know, go back to doing the usual combos. And yeah, I still have some decent health. I haven't lost most of it from the real Nick Fury stage. So it is quite a comfortable fight with Nick Fury. You know, just gotta manage his rock armor pretty well, which isn't that difficult due to Nick Fury's bleeds. Just him being defensive and having stubborn is actually more annoying to manage. So now I have 25 seconds left and he is at 18%. He's in assassin's range and it is looking a bit tight. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get him to 10% health with my basic hits. And then throw a special 3 because I know that will take him out just due to observing the last special 3. Okay, 10%, drop the special 3. 9, 7, 6, 4. And boom, he goes down. So Nick Fury took away 53% of his health in just under 2.5 minutes. Which means in theory he could actually solo this fight without any boosts. So yeah, that's going to be it for this long war video. It was a pretty epic war till the end against some opposition who played pretty well. Actually, I need to give a shout out to Peekaboo, who did manage to solo my rank 3 Doom boss with these 5-star Void in about 3 minutes. No synergies, and yeah, it was a pretty good fight, and I know because he did actually send it to me. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon.